While one champion enjoys an activity,
Jon Jones is absolutely positively the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, probably the greatest fighter of all time in any sport.
the other one destroys every opponent in his path.
He doesn't deserve anything. He looks great, and he looks like he's going to be the guy.
Jon is being praised and protected, while Tom's achievements are downplayed, although he overcomes fires of the heavyweight division. Well, there is one way to solve this problem once and for all, and we all know what it is.
When you talk about who's the baddest dude in the world, you put two guys in a room and who walks out? Jon Jones walks out of the room every time.
Why not just put them in one cage and allow them to resolve all the disagreements swirling around the MMA community for months? Could it be that the MMA GOAT is scared to lose to a young prospect? If that is the case, his fear is justified. In 2020, at the beginning of February, Jon Jones defended his light heavyweight title for the last time with a controversial judge's decision before leaving the division forever. He decided to devote himself to the plans in a heavier category.
My goal is to get up to 270 pounds. My goal is to be the most technical, the most well-conditioned, the strongest out of all the heavyweights.
But Jon's plans didn't go as imagined, because 6 months later, a young debutant showed up from Liverpool, England. Tom Aspinall came as a representative of the new generation of heavyweights, and people couldn't even imagine what kind of skill he would bring to the UFC octagon. It all started when Tom was just 12 years old, and his father, Andrew, quit his job to devote himself to the evolution of his son's fighting career, believing that one day he would become a UFC champion. Looking at the path they were to take, Aspinall saw many obstacles, but at least the destination was clear as day.
Your dad, one of the first Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts in the UK, how central was he to your coaching, you getting into martial arts, you developing as a fighter?
He's everything. Literally, if he rung me up right now and went, Tom, I think you should stop fighting now. I think you've done enough. I'd be like, yep, no worries. And I'd go and tell the guys that I'm retiring. That's like what my dad means to me in terms of fighting. Like, he's literally took me to my first ever martial arts session, and he's quite literally been at every session since.
Their relationship is reminiscent of the late Abdulmanap and Habib on their way to greatness. The English duo worked hard to make their dream come true. With a record of 7 wins and 2 losses, they made their trip to Abu Dhabi, where Tom will perform wearing UFC gloves for the first time. His future in the promotion was promising after a striking masterclass in the first minute against Jake Collier. From that day and through the next 2 years, his career seemed like a dream. With curly hair and a few tattoos less, Tom showed that he doesn't need much time in a fight to prove who is the better fighter. The English giant was finishing opponents within the first round, collecting performance of the night bonuses, and rapidly climbing the heavyweight rankings. The only man to make it to a second round was the former heavyweight champion, Andrei Arlovsky. However, luck did not serve him there, and the young Aspinall justified his BJJ black belt, finishing the old warrior with a rear naked choke. Tom had everything: heavy and fast punches, an excellent ground game, and he performed actively. In the next year, 2 more top heavyweights, Sergey Spivak and Alexander Volkov, fell under his pressure. He performed so quickly and efficiently, leaving no room for future opponents to analyze him.
He's phenomenal. And he is, again, the next advancement of the evolution of the sport. He can do everything. That guy's got elite jiu-jitsu. He's got elite takedowns. His striking is outstanding.
Tom just blew through him like he was nothing. And I do 100% believe he will be the champion. In fact, I know he will be the champion. I don't think there's anyone that can stop Tom Aspinall. He's that good. He's that switched on.
During his quick rise and record-breaking wins, Aspinall encounters the first obstacle that stops him just a few steps away from a title shot. It happened 15 seconds into the fight against Curtis Blaydes.
His knee's gone. Oh, such a shame.
Tom fell to the ground in pain and agony after tearing his MCL and meniscus and damaging his ACL. He threw one kick that activated an old injury from training, which will keep him out of competition for 364 days. His first loss in the UFC came in an ugly way, but looking at the bigger picture, it was a great situation to show us what the English fighter is made of. Now, we could say it was a small doom before the golden days to come.
To be honest, it never really happened with a kick before. If I was on my knees for too long, like grappling, like in turtle position, sometimes I couldn't stand up because it'd be locked, like bending. I have to get someone to like pull it out. For whatever reason, that night, I kicked him and my knee just locked up completely. Couldn't move it. It just, something snapped in there and then that was it.
But before the big comeback, Jon Jones enters the story, and their paths cross for the first time. Bones spent 3 years out of the war zone, spending time in a caloric surplus, lifting weights, and honing his skills before making a run for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. During that time, the UFC failed to keep its current champion, Francis Ngannou, whose contract expired, and he was stripped of the title. Dana White could not achieve the dream fight to show who the baddest man on the planet. Instead of the Cameroonian Predator, Jones got the dancing Frenchman, Cyril Gane, as his next opponent opponent, and the vacant title was on the line on March 4th, 2023. It was to be expected that Jon would triumph against Cyril, but the speed in which he executed his game plan was incredible. A quick takedown and choke in the first 2 minutes launched him into the stars. Just when we thought he couldn't be more dangerous, Jones won the heavyweight championship. But this success would backfire and go over his head. Even though he sat on the throne of the MMA world, as time went by, everything around him started to collapse.
I just feel so refreshed and rejuvenated to be able to do all these things like pain-free, but not just pain-free, like pain is part of being a top-level athlete for sure. The mental thing of having, if I do this too much, my knee's going to give out. Every day and every movement I make, it honestly just took its toll big time mentally, and I didn't even realize it. I was so used to it over the years that it became like, you know, I'm all right to do it with one leg, and now that I've got 2 legs, I realize I'm just way different now. Like, I feel just so much better. It feels great.
After a dark period, Tom Aspinall makes his comeback. There were questions as to whether he would ever be the same again. Many fighters were ruined by the injury and later weren't what they used to be. Many fighters, yes, but not Tom. Tommy did what Tommy does best, picking up another bonus with a TKO in the first round against the dangerous Pole Marcin Tybura. Aspinall returned in style, and it was as if he had never left. Regardless of his previous defeat, fate smiled at him, and there was an interesting turn of events.
For the heavyweight championship of the world, Jon Jones, the greatest mixed martial artist of all time, will defend his title against the greatest heavyweight of all time, former champ Stipe Miocic.
A lot of hype was created around the fight that was supposed to be the biggest heavyweight matchup of all time in the UFC. A fight that was supposed to show who the most dangerous man in the world was. It was a comeback fight for Stipe Miocic, who was ready to regain his heavyweight title against the newly crowned champion Jones. Everyone has been waiting for November 11th to see a showdown between 2 UFC giants that we haven't seen fight in a long time. Everything was ready and going as it should until it didn't.
Jon Jones was training last night, got injured, he was wrestling, and he tore the tendon that connects your pec to the bone off the bone. 8 months, gonna need surgery, he's out. The co-main event now is Pavlovich versus Aspinall for the interim heavyweight championship.
Instead of a legacy fight, on 2 weeks' notice, Tom Aspinall comes in to fight against the boogeyman of the heavyweight division, Sergey Pavlovich. The Russian monster was extinguishing everything in his path with knockouts. His way of fighting was quite similar to Aspinall's, high finish rate and early in the first rounds. Tom admitted that he's never been more terrified in his life. But as the saying goes, the bold do not live forever, but cowards do not live at all. Tom had one shot and was determined to take it. Everyone who watched the previous fights of these two knew that there was no chance of hearing the bell for the second round. With the first rough contact, Tom felt the power of Pavlovich, but seconds later, Aspinall's speed was too much for Sergey. As in all previous fights, only 1 minute was enough. Tom Aspinall became the first heavyweight champion from England who couldn't wait to unify the belt. But then additional problems and drama arose.
Both those guys stepping up, taking it on short notice, and both big, heavy hitters. I could have gone either way, and Aspinall got it.
Maybe Tom deserves to fight Jon or deserves to fight Stipe, or maybe that's a better fight.
No, you do those two. Both deserve that fight. That's the fight they want.
Do you anticipate Tom defending the interim title because of like how they'll have to wait for that fight to happen? Do you expect him to fight somebody else?
I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see what happens. You know, took this fight on short notice. Obviously looked great. He's got plenty of money to chill out for a minute, and we'll see.
Dana White didn't give us any room to think that Tom could unify his belt. As always, the president knew what he was doing, and it wasn't looking good for Aspinall. Dana had only one fight on his mind. However, instead of asking when the fight between Stipe and Jon would happen, the attention went in another direction. People started asking what the UFC would do with Aspinall. Are they ready to make the same mistake that they did with Francis Ngannou? People's interest has waned. The previous scheduled fight is pushed as something big, and Tom is left on the bench to guard the interim belt. Things had to move quickly to go in his favor, but Aspinall would have to wait for Jon to heal, prepare, and fight. And then the result of the fight would show when Jon or Stipe could get back in the cage. It was simply too long to wait, and Tom wanted to be active. His patience was wearing thin, and he made it clear that he wanted to fight only one man.
What do you want next? And what do you think you'll get next?
I want to fight Jon Jones next, is what I want. And I think I can get it, to be honest with you. Why is this Stipe thing going on when I'm knocking out guys like Pavlovich in a minute. I don't want to disrespect Stipe because it's not like that at all. I'm speaking facts and I'm speaking truth. There's definitely 100% now more people interested in me versus Jon Jones than there is Stipe. Not fought for 4 years, fighting Jon Jones.
Although Tom was right, Jon Jones took his fingers to social media, criticizing Aspinall on several occasions. Dana White took Jones' side, praising him at every opportunity on the microphone to the point that fans became sick and tired. Fans were further angered by the fact that White called his heavyweight champion an up-and-coming fighter climbing the ladder, while Tom was annihilating top heavyweights. Dana still claimed Jones was an active fighter even though he had not fought since March of 2023.
Nobody, not even Ali, nobody's ever come from 3 years off and looked the same. Jon Jones walked through the #1 guy in the heavyweight division like it was nothing with 3 years off.
Are we gonna pretend that there was just nothing wrong with what Dana said? The president seems to have forgotten that it was Georges St-Pierre who came back after not 3, but 4 years and won the belt in a division above. In addition to allowing Jones to hold down the rest of the heavyweights, they mess with the pound-for-pound rankings as well. Regardless of Islam Makhav's activity, White felt insulted that Jon Jones was not in first place. Jon also spent his free time threatening to retire after Stipe's fight, and fans got the idea that he might be ducking Aspinall by all means. To make matters worse, after Alex Pereira defeated Jiri Prochazka, he expressed his desire to compete in the heavyweight division. This was music to Jon's ears, who said he would be happy to welcome him to the division. Everyone agreed that Jones would do anything but fight Aspinall, and anyone who understands MMA knows why he would rather fight Pereira. Consequently, Tommy gets a new task: defending the interim title against the only man who beat him on paper, Curtis Blaydes. We don't have to say how badly Jones wanted Aspinall to lose, just so he could rub it in his face. But even this time, things didn't go according to Jon's plan. At UFC 304 on July 27th, 2024, Tom delivered a quick finish, like 6 times so far, to defend the interim belt and avenge his only loss. Holding back the heavyweight division because of Jones' privilege went over his head. But regardless, Tom called Jon out in the most respectful way possible in the post-fight interview.
Hello, Jon. I have nothing against you personally, but I just think I'm better than you. I just know that I can beat you in a fight, so I'm coming for it.
Tom did not remain indebted to Jones' comments on the internet. He even answered him properly, as much as possible, but in his own style, with polite trash talk and spitting facts. After the destruction of Curtis Blaydes, there was no longer any doubt about Tom's reign and capabilities, but Jon Jones refused to see it. In fact, he saw it very well. He just refused to admit it publicly. Jones quickly went from GOAT mode to duck mode. There was a question of whether Jon and Stipe would retire after their imaginary fight, and with Tom's victory, the flame of fans' desire to watch the two fight was extinguished. Jon, Stipe, and Dana are definitely the only ones who still want this fight. However, White, as a true businessman, decided to take advantage of the situation and present Tom Aspinall as a new challenger for the winner, doing his best to keep the winner of Stipe vs. Jon competing in the game.
Tom Aspinall, 1 minute, got him out of there. I mean, kind of different from the main event, right? Just came in there and blew him off. Do you think that Jon Jones fight is getting bigger and bigger?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, there's no doubt. Whoever wins the fight between Jon Jones and Stipe is a great fight for Aspinall. Jon Jones always loves to challenge himself. Moved up to heavyweight. I don't know what Jon Jones will do after this fight, but I would be shocked if he didn't want to test himself against Aspinall.
Get Stipe out of there. Let's be honest, like, the guy's 43 years old. He's had a 4-year layoff, and his last fight was a knockout loss. Granted, he's an absolute legend in the sport of MMA. He's the best heavyweight ever, like, statistically. He's the best heavyweight ever, but the guy needs to be pulled out of the race. The guy needs to be Joe Biden, mate. He's too old. No one's that interested anymore. I respect Stipe a lot. Pull him out, stick me in.
Well, the president was right about one thing. Aspinall and Jones would be an even bigger fight. The situation has now completely turned around, and the only focus is on the fight between the interim and the current champion. The pressure has fallen on Jon Jones, and his escape route is getting thinner and thinner. There will come a time where he will be forced into a corner with no choice of retiring or facing Tom Aspinall, and something tells us he's gonna be really happy to choose the first option. Looking at all that Jones has accomplished in the cage, there is no doubt that he is one of the greatest fighters to ever step foot in the sport of MMA. He is the only one left of the old champions, and he is still at the very top where he was a decade ago. He fought with the biggest names in his category and always came out victorious. He is one of the first in the GOAT GOAT debate, but over the years, he has made it difficult for us to raise him to the stars, and the situation with Aspinall could be the last straw. During his UFC competition, there was not a year where he was not surrounded by controversial situations. His GOAT status carries many black marks, and Jon continues to stain it. This man has more arrests than Nurmagomedov has title defenses. There are also his failed drug tests, which to MMA fans are even worse than being chased around by the police. And let's not forget the controversial decision in the fight against Dominic Reyes. He didn't always delight us as a person, but the least he could do is give us a fight against Tom Aspinall. Instead, he chooses to wage war on social media, threaten retirement, and downplay Tom's achievements. That's because Jon knows what's at stake. He wants victory over Stipe so he could be declared the greatest heavyweight of all time. This is debatable, considering that Stipe has been out of the action for years, and his last fight was a brutal knockout loss.
Everything I do will be about Stipe Miocic. I believe that I'm going to not only win this fight against Stipe, but I'm going to finish Stipe Miocic.
The last time that Miocic won, reigning champions like Alex Pereira, Dricus du Plessis, and Ilia Topuria hadn't even started their UFC careers. We haven't heard people say in a long time that there was a man who could beat Jon Jones, but Tom Aspinall could be that guy.
I'll be there, I'll be in, I'm ready to take the fight. I'm the number one in the division, not Jon Jones, not Stipe Miocic. They're a couple of older fellas having a fighting for the title for some reason.
Taking Tom down, I don't know, he's a great wrestler. He probably could. He took DC down a couple of times. I think Tom could get back to the feet, but on the feet, I think Tom takes his head off.
I think he's got better submission skills on the ground than Jon Jones. Wrestling might be an issue, but as far as his striking, his ability to put you out with one shot, greater knockout ability in my opinion than Jon Jones at the moment.
For me personally, Jon Jones is the GOAT. You know what I mean? He's the best of all time. But if anyone's going to give him a fight, it's Tom Aspinall. You know what I mean? He's got the speed. He's got the jiu-jitsu, he's got the power.
Well, Tom's not that good. I fought newcomers before. No, build him up, bro. Build him up and be like, yeah, maybe this is a guy that's going to beat me. And then when you come out of retirement after you beat Stipe, that fight's massive.
Jon knows how dangerous Tom is and that fighting him would have more risk than gain. Unlike Aspinall, Jon has not been tested enough in the heavyweight division. He's only had a fight against a top striker and ended it with his wrestling skills. A lot of people don't hide that they want to see him getting knocked out after all of this, but the real fans just want to see a good fight between two of the best fighters in the division. Jon certainly didn't show a drop in performance and still has a couple more shots in his frame. His greatest weapon has always been his elite fighting IQ, which can only get better with age and training. Jones has always been good at mixing skills and neutralizing the qualities of his opponent. He's fought much better wrestlers and strikers and always found a way to win. Don't get us wrong, no one said that Tom would dominate and destroy Jones, but he has the potential to beat him and make this his toughest fight yet. Let's be real, Jon isn't getting any younger by the day, and if this fight happens at all, it would mean that they would have to wait at least one more year. Jones will then be 38 years old and Aspinall 32 and in his prime. Besides skillful and young Aspinall, time is Jones's biggest enemy, next to USADA and police enforcers of course. True, Tom still has a long way to fill the shoes of Jon Jones, but he is on a great path, and if he continues to work the way he has been already, then he will be one of the greatest of all time.
Jon Jones, I know you got your fight coming up. Apparently it's in November against Stipe Miocic. Nothing has been announced or signed yet as far as I'm aware, but if that does happen, I'll be there. I'll be ready to jump in with either of you guys for the undisputed title if one of you is going to pull out. But if you successfully defend against Stipe in November, I will be there in the crowd. I'll be there front row. I want you to hand me the undisputed title as you walk past me, please. Thank you.